What's up? What's up? What's up? This is the talented Mr. Taco. I got uh a special guest on for today's edition of This Week in Fantasy Basketball. I have a real professional in the game, I want to say, the way he carries himself and the way he conducts business on his blog. I got Papa Roy on today. What up, Papa Roy? How you feeling today?
What is up, bro? Feeling good. There's a lot of things going in NBA, and it's kind of busy here in our side of country. The Filipino people are just cramming here, and I guess when you guested in our show, there's a lot of things that they learned, and especially me learned about it. So we're really hyped. Thank you so much for guesting.
No problem. I had tons of fun on it, and that's why I had to have you on, especially this week during the playoffs. And just to shout out your group again, he has a wonderful blog, especially on he's everywhere. I'm gonna let him plug himself, but when I go through it, I see a lot of injury updates, flash news, presentations, like even this one just on Kawhi, which is a player that we're gonna talk about. And I think that's a great reason why to come to his site and to his group because he offers a lot of great information. And tell them again where they can find you at.
Yeah, our main page is within Facebook. So actually, we are Fantasy Basketball PH. So you can check updates there. Usually, I post on a daily basis, but it's kind of busy right now here. So
Sure.
what I'm doing is I'm doing a live episode specifically about playoffs, where we call it our playoffs daily grind. Wherein I start off by discussing all of the updates about fantasy basketball. I actually spend time in checking schedules. So if you have a hard time trying to decide who to add, how to strategize, how to maximize your drop moves, we usually do it for daily today format, daily tomorrow format. Then of course we also have Q&A there. Mostly we have Filipino, so if you happen to drop by, just let me know. Just comment out, hey man, can you speak in English, and we'll definitely do that.
Awesome, bro. Awesome. And today we're gonna kick it off with a little bit of an Anthony Davis news. And what up to Hustler? Been on his shows a couple times. Great dude, great for Dynasty and IDP fantasy football. He has some great groups going on as well. Great dude. But real quick, Anthony Davis is finally back after being out for over 2 months. He's making his debut for the Lakers, and as you see, the Lakers are a lot better with him. But in terms of fantasy basketball, what does that really mean for the Lakers? I mean, I think we've seen guys like Kyle Kuzma recently going off, and guys like Tyler Horton Tucker have really become good streamer guys that people have been on, and I think that we're gonna have to start looking at possibly having to move off of them a little bit with Anthony Davis returning. Now, I do think it probably takes a game or two for him to get his legs underneath him, but as that goes on, that's something you're gonna need to monitor and see which of these other guys becomes the number two or the number three to him. Because let's face facts, he is now going to dominate the ball. So some of these guys and the way they were scoring and what they were doing is just not going to be the same now that Anthony Davis is back. And what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, bro. Me personally, I'm pretty hyped and excited for Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
I think despite those minutes restrictions, say Anthony Davis plays around 25 minutes ish.
Mhm.
For me, he's still a top guy. I mean,
Yeah.
he's a basketball per minute monster. So I
Yeah.
would still uh, try to activate him because there are
Absolutely.
instances that uh, people coming from injuries, you try to like shelf them for a couple of days until they do bombs and explode, right? But for Anthony Davis, I think you're free to play him off the bat. As of the moment, uh, Los Angeles Lakers are what 4 games ahead of Dallas or Memphis, which probably will be in the play-in tournament. I don't think Lakers are interested to to play there, right? I mean, LeBron is weeks away, so um, I think they'll be somehow cautious. It's safe to assume that Anthony Davis could play around 25 minutes to 30 minutes ish.
Mhm.
More than 30 minutes, it's I don't think that would happen.
Mhm.
But per rotation, this is a very bad news for Harrell. If you're trying to hold him, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know, man. You might not be watching Mr. Taco here because Harrell should be dropped a couple of weeks already. But just review the pecking order.
Mhm.
even
Especially,
though Andre Drummond plays,
mhm.
there's a lot of things happening in the front court. You have Mark Gasol. I don't think Harrell is better than Gasol. I think there are instances that uh, Gasol is better than Andre Drummond as well. So with Anthony Davis
Really?
back, yeah, I mean, there are situations
Right.
wherein I would
I agree
play
with
Marc
that.
Gasol over Andre Drummond. Gasol is a vet.
Yeah,
He actually gives more space when he plays,
I
given
agree.
that how he can be that third or second playmaker,
You're right.
especially that only Schroeder is trying to be the playmaker in the team, right? So for me, there will be instances that they would rather have Marc Gasol over Andre Drummond and of course over Harrell. Now AD's back, you have to check those rotations. I mean, I know and I understand that Andre Drummond is a per minute monster himself. But
Yep.
if there are instances that they'll go up against probably Philly, when they go and match up against the likes of Joel Embiid, I would see some reduction in terms of minutes and a lot of time sharing for those front court players.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, and I think it's going to be a situation where they will ease Anthony Davis into it, and it's going to be really interesting just to watch what happens with the front court rotation. Because, like you said, Montrezl Harrell right now, between having Andre Drummond, him, Marcus Gasol, and Anthony Davis, it's going to really affect his time, and it's going to set him up for an interesting situation where even though he's been a great player for you throughout the season, you may have to cut bait and find someone that's more efficient and getting you more of what you need to win these weeks in the playoffs. Because let's face facts, at a certain point in time, guys like Lewis Dort, he's been playing absolutely amazing for the OKC Thunder, but goddamn, they're tanking so hard right now that you try to play him and he's just not in. And this week, I don't think he's played a single game. We don't know really what's going on with the OKC Thunder, and we know they're for sure they look like they want that pick, and it's scary. Guys like Shea get killed, Gilchrist Alexander. I don't think he's coming back. We're looking at Dort. Dort is probably going to sit this whole weekend. Like, it's getting scary if you own these players in that situation, and it might be time to find, those backup role players who, emerges as being somewhat consistent over these next couple of games as the guy to pick up, because I don't really know how many more games Dort's playing this season.
He's been the GOAT for a couple of games. I mean, he can't miss, bro. I mean,
Yeah.
what's up with
Yeah.
Dort? Yeah, like what have you said for OKC? The only incentive that I have for those OKC players is they have 5 games next week. So if
Mhm.
you're in the playoffs, you have to add some of those OKC. Not named Dort because he's like on and off. He can
Yeah.
play. He won't. Maybe because it's like a tanking penalty for them. I
Yeah.
mean, they
I
could lose,
wish.
right?
The NBA needs to do something about the tanking situation, because we're seeing too much and we're seeing smart GMs do it. So this is why when people talk about me, oh, what's going on? Well, look at the teams they're doing. OKC Thunder, they have the most like picks in the league. We're seeing the Raptors, who are one of the best teams in basketball as far as front office goes, especially what they orchestrated with Kawhi and all the young players that they've gotten for virtually nothing that have been great. If they're going as far as they can to lose games, like how's that rotation been with the Raptors lately that it scared you? Like, I'm scared with OG Anunoby, and they're one of those teams, like you said, they have 5 games next week. It's tantalizing to keep a guy like OG Anunoby. Is he going to play? Are they going to rest him in back to backs? How does this situation go? Is he going to set for 5 games and play for 3? That's a best case scenario that I pray for at least. But that's the kind of situations that we're going to have, especially next week with these teams that are tanking, right?
Exactly. And speaking of Toronto Raptors, if you own Chris Boucher, I mean, it's gonna be hard. Like what you've said, they will play 5 games. They have 2 back-to-back games, and I would assume, just in case Chris Boucher will still play or gets healthy, the most games he could play is 3 games with limited minutes. So I guess you have to do some big man decision, man. If you
Yeah.
own Chris Boucher, personally, if like there's a Goodwin or a decent player available in your free agent, personally, I would cut him. Especially that he only has, I mean, Toronto has only 1 game for this week,
Yep.
and if it's a do or die game, you have to cut him.
Yep, yep, and it's going to be a scary situation there. And then I think the next situation that we could bring up here is what's going on with the Brooklyn Nets. So Brooklyn right now has two of their biggest players injured. First, Kevin Durant. He has a thigh injury. I reported that earlier. He looks like he's questionable for Friday's game, so it's not 100% that he's gonna play, but he's getting closer to playing, which is good news. On the other hand, though, there's been an update with James Harden, and James Harden has essentially suffered a setback with his hamstring. And what Steve Nash is saying is they don't really expect him to come back till close to the playoffs. And I think if that's a situation, that makes it really scary for Harden. But I think that opens up things for a guy like either Bruce Brown or Landry Shamet. Now, if we look at Bruce Brown, and I just want to bring him up to his last week, he's been really efficient, scoring 59% from the field, and he's been getting an insane amount of rebounds. We're talking about 10 rebounds per game, okay? And he's getting minutes, about 26 minutes per game. He's getting you steals, 1.8 steals per game. You know, he doesn't really get you the threes, but he doesn't kill you in turnovers. He's not the best with the free throw, but he's getting you some solid points for a guy that you're picking up off the waiver wire and either streaming or holding on for that last spot because you need someone that's playing and that's healthy. So, you know, what are your thoughts here about this net situation? I know that also Landry Shamet is there, and I think Landry Shamet offers some good upside. But what do you make of this situation with James Harden and KD and the situation with some of these waiver wire guys?
Yeah, it really sucks, especially for me. I own a lot of Hardens. I mean,
Uh-huh.
when the season started, everyone is doubting Harden. Personally, I still think he was the number one fantasy player before Jokic exploded. It's arguably that despite losing some usage, if you see his stats, it's insane. For years, he's been like a blip in the system for fantasy. That's
Yeah.
how good he is. So, despite getting into the big three that we have, I still believe he should be in the top five ranking for fantasy. But
Mhm.
for playoffs, again, you have to do some big man decision. If you don't have an IL or an IL plus, I would cut Harden in several situations. I hope you already got the likes of Bruce Brown and Landry Shamet and probably maybe Blake Griffin because despite being that so-so player in Detroit, he should play more now, uh, especially in scoring. Also, in his playmaking ability, he could be the third playmaker every time he's on the floor. Jeff Green is also an option, but if
Mhm.
you are in a deep, deep league, watch out for Mike James. He just signed for the Brooklyn Nets. He's a scorer. If you check his value, he actually played before in Phoenix Suns. I do think he could curve a role there, especially that Shamet. If you remember, Shamet isn't doing anything. I mean, all season long, he had his opportunities, but he didn't deliver. It so happened now he's trying to get some stretch playing better basketball. So with that said, there could be a possibility that Mike James comes into play, curves a role, say 20 minutes, and if you are in a deep, deep league, that's a valuable ad.
And the one thing to point out to that is that Kyrie Irving is a guy that takes rest days all the time. And we figured that this is going to be a stretch where maybe he might take a rest day or two. So, as a streamer option or as a daily option, that could be a name that pops up, like you said, into a valuable position.
Exactly, especially that Kyrie usually has a lot of friends or family that has special events like birthdays. So who
Mhm.
knows? He might attend those events.
Yeah, but I will say this to Kyrie's credit. He's one of those guys like Harden. Like when he plays this season, he is just like, wow. Last night he came 2 assists away from a triple double, and I was begging for it and I was watching it, but he did no one was scoring for him when he was passing the ball. But the one guy that actually did show up really big time for them was DeAndre Jordan. He was a monster on the boards and he got some extra burn last night. So, like you said, it's going to be really interesting to see how the playing time divvies out. And then the next question is really going to be what the usage is with some of these guys. I just want to see how much they use Harden. I mean, not Harden, Kyrie and Kevin as the season closes out and as we close out the fantasy playoffs. Because as we get deeper in the playoffs, I just have a feeling like Nash is going to start benching some of these guys, and it's going to be key situations. And yeah, it's going to be hard to tape because you can't drop him because he's probably going to play the next day. But on a back to back, you find Kyrie is sitting and he's in your lineup, and you need those points. And Yeah, guys, get ready. It's going to be an interesting couple of weeks.
Yeah, I agree. But personally, I'm also looking hard on an angle that Brooklyn should like experiment and see everything, every rotation that they can before the playoffs. I
Right.
mean, how much time did the big three play together?
Right.
It's pretty low. So just in case Harden surprisingly comes back,
I don't think Harden comes back to the
which I
playoffs.
really don't think, right?
Yeah.
But there's leagues that somehow plays until the end of the last day of the regular season. So just in case, I think there's some incentive there to play Harden. They really want them to
Mhm.
play together with Blake Griffin, and also check it when Claxton is ready. They might also try to balance out the minutes distribution between him and DeAndre Jordan. So those stuff are just incentive, especially for those deeper leagues to monitor those guys because Brooklyn wants to win. Brooklyn wants the championship. Brooklyn wants the crown. They'll definitely will try everything. Yeah, especially that this is the first time that Nash's coaches a team, so he should definitely try and lubricate those gears before the playoffs.
That's very true, and I'm hoping too because just the way they run this season, Kyrie has taken a lot of rest, and he already was out the other day, and it like I said, it's a scary situation because that's been the deal throughout, and even in games where they don't have Kevin Durant or Harden, he'll still get his rest. So I'm hoping, like you said, they try to work out all the lineups and just keep it going on. But next up on the injury report that we actually have to bring up is something that happened last night at the Madison Square Garden Arena, and that was the Trey Young injury. Now, Trey Young sprained his ankle, and what it looks like is that it's the best possible case. He's not going to be out that long, but it's going to take a little bit of time for him to get some swelling down. And I'd assume that the Hawks don't want to throw him back immediately and then him hurt himself a little bit more. But with that being said, I think it does open up a position for his backup, which we had mentioned on our IG page. Okay, and shout outs to Ricky for being on that, because this is a guy that I wanted to talk about before, but he had lost the opportunity when Trey Young had started playing. But let's look at the thing about Brandon Goodwin. When Young was out earlier with the injury, he didn't get much time, but when he got this burn here, he started to blow up. Then last night we saw he had some shooting issues. But if you're gonna try to catch, as I say, we're trying to catch falling knives. For 1 or 2 games, he might be an interesting play, especially if we're in the playoffs and you guys need wins and you guys need some players. I think that Goodwin really opens up an opportunity because of this injury with Trey Young. Trey Young is going to be out at least 1 game, 2 games, and this guy's only 1% owned. Yes, he's not the best player, but yes, he can get hot, and yes, he's going to get the time. And I think if you're trying to, like they say, catch the knives, this is something to be interested in. And I know you were mentioning him earlier, so I think you have a nice feeling on him as well.
Yeah, definitely. If you play DFS, every time
Yeah,
Trey Young sits, he's definitely an ad. He's a
yeah,
value pick for DFS.
mm,
So personally, him and Sweet Lou Williams will definitely get an uptick.
yep,
We have a few game sample to back that
yep,
up, but for me personally, we have to watch out for John Collins because those games that Archie Goodwin exploded while Trey Young was away, John Collins wasn't playing. So now
mm,
that Collins is playing, and maybe
mhm,
Capella is won't play as well because he got some a couple of
right,
injuries back in that game as well, right? So if
exactly,
that's the case,
yeah,
maybe they want John Collins to get
mhm,
up some shots and be back 100% before the
mhm,
playoffs, right? So
mhm,
if that's the case, this could mean that there will be a dip in usage for Goodwin and as well as
right,
Lou Williams. Still, we're in the playoffs. I mean, you can't get that upside in every free agent pool, right? So I will still suggest to add him. Roll the dice. He's a decent ad without
mhm,
there's an upside there.
mhm,
You can see his stats around 3 snipes, 18 points,
mhm,
around 4 to 5 rebounds, and that goes as well with his dimes. So it's
mhm,
it's a pretty good line. Lou Williams on the other side, this is a low key solid ad for those who wants to win free throw percentage. Remember, guys, for you to win those free throw percentage, you have to have a player that shoots a lot of free throws. So it means it's driven from the free throws made. So just the last game, I guess he had, or a couple of games ago, he just, I mean, Lou Williams just did a 8 out of 10 free throws, and that will definitely help your free throws percentage compared to just adding those players that are shooting 100%, but say one of one or two of two. You should really add those players that has a lot of free throws attempts that does it efficiently if you want to win the free throw percentage category.
I think that's a really undervalued metric because a lot of people forget that yes, if you shoot have a guys that don't shoot that many free throws, but they shoot good free throws, yes, that's good. But all of a sudden you have one or two or three misses, your percentage tanks really fast. So like it's one thing that I think that when you're in your draft you target, but if you can get on a free agent wire, it's even better. Like you said, if you're getting that volume of a good free throw shooter and you're close in free throw percentage, it's the perfect way to snipe someone and be able to get yourself ahead because you have to look at it once it's coming down to the categories because you might be down 4 to 5 and you're like, where can I get it? And boom, this might be the one, or it might be turnovers, or it might be 3 points. You have to evaluate what's going on in your situation. What are the players that you have left, and what do you think you can get? You know?
Definitely. Just to add, just in case Gallo plays, he's also one of those type of players. If you've been playing fantasy for quite some time, you should know that Lou Williams and Danilo Gallinari are part of those, I guess, even top 10 all-time free throws made influencers. So watch out once he plays. But as of the moment, he's out. By the way, I just want to add, just in case Capella misses time, you have to add Okongu. That Rook is a very good rookie. I think personally he was the best big man out of the draft. I know I understand how promising James Wiseman is, but given the for experience wise, Okongwu plays really good defense for the new generation basketball. He can go up and down, handle those faster players or those guards. So for me, watch out again for. I mean, Capella. They need Capella, bro. If you watch Atlanta, every time Capella doesn't play, I mean, Atlanta goes back to dump side. So
Yeah.
you have to monitor that and shout out to Bogdan Bogdanovic. He should
Oh.
be playing like this for quite some time. I understand everybody was like
Mhm.
down for him because early in the season he got he got hurt. So they forgot that Atlanta paid a lot to get this guy out. I mean, they got him over Milwaukee Bucks. I mean, there once a week there was a week that Bogdanovich was the hottest player to add, right? When he was available in the market. So you have to give him props. I think even the Andre Hunter comes back next season. Bogdanovich has established his role. He's that scorer type of guy that also does playmaking chores. I mean, he's a good player, bro. I mean,
Mhm.
internationally, he's quite known, but I guess in general in NBA, he's still underrated.
Uh-huh. No, I definitely agree with you there. And Bogdan Bogdanovic over his last couple of games has been absolutely killing it. And the one thing is, and I'll bring this up because I wish I had it available. But when he first was hurt, he was dropped, and then when he first came back, or he was dropped in so many leagues. And we had brought it up on our Instagram page, and I was trying to pull it up, but I didn't get a chance to. But he's a guy that, oh my god, so many teams. If you were able to get him off the waiver wire when I think he dropped to like I want to say like 40% because he, like you said, he had the long injury. He was playing bad, and then even when he returned, he was playing bad. So a lot of teams dropped him. There was a stretch where you could have had him, and then poof, he went to the moon. He was like Dogecoin right now. But on the next guy that we want to talk about is one of these guys in the trends right now as well, and that's my guy Bobby Portis. Now, Bobby Portis, as we see here, just in the last day, he's been dropped in 12% of leagues. Personally, I've had Bobby Portis on my team in a few leagues, and in one of the leagues that I really need to win. And if we look what's going on over his last couple of games, he's really started to dip, and especially with Giannis being back in his first 2 games, he's went down to 6 points. Now, I'm not going to lie. When I was looking at it today, I was scared. But then I look back today and he's having a breakout game, which we couldn't have seen coming because all the trends were going down. I'm not going to lie. Personally, I was on the verge of dropping him. But for me, I said, because of the way the games work in the playoffs, I'm going to let him play this last game. And if he stinks for this game, then I'm going to drop him or let's see what happens. So, thankful for this 43%. This 12%, I feel bad for you guys because you missed a good game. But going forward, he has a back-to-back 24-25. I don't really know what's going to go on with Giannis. If they're going to sit him on any of these back to back since he's had a couple of injuries. So Bobby Portis, he might be available in your leagues, and if you want to roll the dice, he might be one of the guys that you can look at. He's finally had one of those breakout games that you'd like to see, so it kind of gives you a little bit of confidence in picking him back up. Because overall for the season, he's been a really good player. Just to bring up what he's been on for the season average, real quick. He's been 110, and this is with his recent decline. He's been shooting efficiently from the field at 52%, great from the free throw at 75%. He's getting you at least 1 3 a game while playing center position, which is a nice bonus if you're going for threes. 11.7 rebounds, and again, we don't know exactly what's going to happen with Giannis down the stretch. Especially with him dealing injuries, I think that it might be a potential opportunity, but again, gotta see how he's playing. So I'll bring it back to you. What's your thoughts about what's going on here in Milwaukee and Bobby Portis?
Yeah, I mean, I like your analysis there because, again, going back to the value in free agency, there are no mass ad right now. Everyone is mass ad. I would
Mhm.
rather tag them as like priority ads. You have to have your
Yeah.
priorities. Something that should trigger this, which I would love to talk about probably before we end the show, is
Sure.
understanding your team's strength and understanding your team's weakness. That goes as well
Mhm.
with your opponents.
Mhm.
So once you've done that,
Mhm.
picking players from free agents should be easy because you have a
Yep.
specific target, right?
Yep.
Um, on top of that, we have the likes of Bobby Portis. Bobby Portis is someone that could easily be top 50 player whenever Giannis is out. So the question here is, can you find other free agent player that can provide that value? Because if not, that's an incentive for you to add the likes of Bobby Portis. At this point, you can't add those like safe players or fringe guys, so the likes of Cody Zeller. I mean, they can't win you championship, bro. At this point, you have to do some big man decision. And for me, rolling the dice is one of it's a good strategy because the moment he explodes, it's a big gap against your opponent compared to like adding some safe players just give you like what almost double 8.6 rebounds.
Mhm.
I mean, you have to do and in of course on top of that you have to check the schedules
Mhm.
again. It's Giannis has been resting for quite some time.
Mhm.
It was surprising that he played today, right?
Yep.
Especially against
Philly.
Embiid, because yesterday in our show, I was saying that you know what, guys, watch out who this is like wait and see mode for Milwaukee and Philly.
Yeah.
If Embiid plays, I think Giannis will play. If Giannis will rest, I think Embiid will rest. So it's that type of place right now because as playoffs comes closer,
Mhm.
I think they would like to understand more about their teams. Coaches want to understand more about the role, the rotation, the
Mhm.
matchup. So
Mhm.
playing against those better teams is a very good experience for them before they play for playoffs. And with that said, those are incentives for them to play. But
Mhm.
if the back-to-back games is against the likes of Minnesota, I mean, we've seen this last week.
Yep.
Almost all the Milwaukee Bucks
Yep.
are out, and
Yep.
there's the other Antetokounmpo was the ones
Yep.
playing hard. So
Oh
just
my
take
god.
note of those games, guys.
Yep, and I think that's going to be one of the hardest things about this playoffs going down the stretch is we don't know when these random this has never been like this in the NBA before. And not only do we have the tank, but we have the rest. Like Murray from San Antonio today, all of a sudden, out of the blue, he's resting. Who knew? I didn't know. I couldn't even get Harrison because they didn't tell me till 10 minutes before the game. So I just gotta say, right now things are a little bit crazy in the NBA, and everyone's keeping it so close to the vest. But it's a little frustrating, man. Like especially with the Harris and the Murray, and when it's on your teams, and I got Murray in like almost every league. I'm just like, come on, man. I got no time to react. That's just a
I
little
mean,
personal.
this is something that was somehow driven by the situation that we have this season, the COVID season, those DNPs.
Mhm.
Um, we got to give some support to the teams that are resting, even they are paying fines. I mean,
Mhm.
NBA should understand that
Mhm.
this schedule is really, really challenging for those players,
Yeah.
especially those GMs that invested a lot of money to those players. They want them healthy. They
Yeah.
want them healthy for the next 5 years to the next
Yeah.
4 years. So I can't argue with that. I understand how NBA wants to, they've been losing money a lot for the past 2 seasons, I guess. So they need those fans. They need to hype the whole league. I understand that.
Well,
But
they are signing the new big deal with the streaming and the other distribution rights, and I think that I agree with what you're saying. Like, it's not good business. I didn't mean to cut you off, but
yeah,
yeah.
no worries. But yeah, this is also those stuff that we don't usually talk about in fantasy, but
Mhm.
has a direct impact to fantasy.
Mhm.
We've already encountered that this season. I
Mhm.
mean, if
It's
you're a
bad.
very, very good player, you've played fantasy even in 50 years, I
Mhm.
think winning isn't like sure for you this season.
Nope. You could
The
be the one
percentage of luck
seeded. Yeah.
this season just, plummeted. So what we can just do as fantasy fans and GMs, I guess, just to enjoy the show, try to enjoy it despite those injuries, and then of course, you have to play around those add and drops. It's so happy to add unknown players,
Yeah.
then gives you a lot of stats. I mean, I found happiness for doing that. So I guess those are the silver linings of this COVID season.
Sure, and like you said, the COVID part of the season has made it so crazy because I mean, just as we saw recently, guys like KPJ, Kevin Porter Jr., and you're looking at Zach Levine, both went down with COVID. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm facing both in the same league. Like, I feel bad for the guy, but his team was on fire. So, like you said, you got to roll with the punches. And now, on the last topic that I want to hit before we wrap this bad boy up, I just want to bring it real quick to a situation that I don't think a lot of fantasy players are aware of because it's relatively new, and that's going to be the situation that's occurring here with the Indiana Pacers. Now, if we look at the Indiana Pacers, there's one guy here that's been an absolute monster throughout the season that is not going to be playing for the team going forward. We have Miles Turner having an MRI for a partial tear of his plantar plate and his big toe. So basically, he's going to be out indefinitely. We have no clue when he's going to come back. He had already been missing some games, so he's out. Sabonis is going through it. He's having his back injury. He's already missed a couple of games. So in the front court right now for Indiana, it's very thin. And yes, Karis LeVert is great, but when we're looking at some guys, O'Shea Brissett has been one of the only big men that they've had available for the Indiana Pacers. Now, if we're playing fantasy basketball, our number one goal here is to make sure that we get as many players that can provide you with as many stats as possible. And if you're going to be spending this draft cap or this, waiver wire free agent pickup, you want to get someone that's going to be able to get you some numbers and be able to do it for you in a little bit of time. And the one thing about O'Shea Brissett, he got a back-to-back coming up on 24-25. And right now, if we look at it, he's getting all the minutes he could handle because there's very thin up front. With Sabonis being hurt and Turner being out, there's a good possibility that this guy's going to get good minutes during this back-to-back run, and it's going to be a super solid ad for you. And he's going to be someone that you're going to have to probably look at if you're looking to make a waiver wire move. If you need some rebounds, he gives you some opportunity at blocks. Yes, this is a wild throw in the dart. But when you look at the situation, when you look at the team, and when you look at where you are in your playoffs, I think this is a guy that you might have to look at. And we'll bring it back to you, Pop. What do you think?
Yeah, he's actually a good ad. I would also chime in Goga Bidatse in the play. He's now game time decision. So
Huh?
I, I've I've ha- I had several questions around Goga. So they were asking, is Goga a mass ad with Turner almost out of the season? For me,
Mhm,
initially he's not a good ad just
mhm,
because Domantas was playing before. Whenever
mhm,
Domantas is playing, he's taking all of the center minutes. I mean all. Um, there are several weeks that Miles Turner was out and Gogo wasn't, consistently enough to provide value. I understand that Goga can give you 5 blocks like in an instant, right? So, oh, what's up for you, JC? This is for Mr. Taco here. I understand he's a knickerbacker, so I had my I had my Knicks caps. JC knows that I'm a Spurs fan, but yeah. So going back with Goga, if he plays, he will definitely carve a role there. And if you need blocks, you have to add Goga. Jakar Samson is out. Sabonis is out. Turner is out. Goga and O'Shea is gonna be the front court. Um, they won't need those much of usage, especially Goga. He is an efficient player, and the value that he brings to the table is his defense. So again, we are now in the crunch time. Even in rot, even in head to head, if you need those categories, you have to monitor those players.
I definitely absolutely agree with you, my friend. And I think that this has been a really informative jam session that we put out here. If anyone has any questions, feel free to drop in and let us know what you're thinking, or any waiver wire ads that you may have. As always, I do leave my inbox open on, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, where you can ask us whatever questions that you may have about your particular team or roster. But Poppy, give us a little breakdown again of where we can find you at, and any closing thoughts you may have for the audience before we round this out.
My closing thoughts here is, well, going back to the statement that I've mentioned earlier. You have to know your team. You have to know your team and your
Mhm,
opponent. We had an episode in our page wherein I gave some tips on how to do it. I created some Excel file because maybe you're up against an opponent that uses tools, so he has an advantage. So somehow we find a way to go up against them. So this is something that could help you. You don't need to subscribe or buy it. Maybe just give me some likes or just subscribe in our YouTube channel. But we won't ask for anything. So check our episode primer there. So it's basically just understanding your strengths ahead of time, your weakness, and if you're in the head-to-head 9 cat format, which is a standard league, you have to pounce on those 5 categories that you can win. If you're losing blocks, if you're losing rebound, come on, don't add more on top of that. Just lose that category and focus on those play or those categories that you can actually win. And for you to be able to do it, you have to project. There's a lot of things happening, so you can only do so much. You only have what, 3 or 5 ad drops. You have to plan it out. You have to check the schedules. You have to check the players of your opponents. You have to check their ad drop. So there's a lot of things that you can consider here. So I guess it's the time of the year that you should really sit tight and try to burn some brain cells to get some advantage. And also, I want to shout out for the Chicago Bulls. Watch out for these teams that would really want to have a cut in the play-in tournament. They really want to win. With Zach Levine out, there's a lot of things going on. Kobe White has been playing well. I was expecting more from Tomas Satoransky. I mean, our friend JC Jesso has been shouting him out for quite some time, but he hasn't playing well. Why? Because he had some injuries, and that restricts his minutes. But as you can see, you have to monitor those minutes. Tomas Satoransky's minutes is going up, so it means that he could have value in the upcoming game. So watch out for that because a lot of things dropped him. So those type of situation, you have to take advantage from it. And I guess shows like the Daily Sporting with our good friend Mr. Taco Hill will definitely help you. So those are the stuff that maybe wasn't entering your idea. So you have to be sneaky at this point. You have to have those. You have to grow those big balls to do some big man decision, guys. I mean, there's a lot of GMs that stuck in deciding, do I have to add this? Do I have to drop that? I mean, you can only analyze like so much. So for me, you have to go with we have to play the hot potato here. Who's hot? You have to add them. But you have to also to strategize. Earlier, Mr. Taco here is discussing several teams that will have 5 games next week. So one of them is Toronto Raptors. So
Mm-hmm.
Toronto Raptors is a pain in the butt if you want to try to analyze it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even me, I don't know if they're trying to win or they're trying to
Mm-hmm.
tank.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, you have to just project the possible games.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
just to analyze those stuff that doesn't depend on anything. So what's that stuff? That's schedule. They have 5 game schedule with 2 back-to-backs. So what does this mean? Worst comes to worst, those core players will just play 3 games. But if they want to win, they maybe play all of those 5 games. So if there are Toronto players that was dropped, I've been preaching this in one of my episodes. Early this week, you have to drop the Toronto Raptors. If you want to win, I mean, you don't have to think about it. They only have 2 games. You have to drop them. But the moment that they have or they play this coming Friday, you have to add them because next week they have 5 games. You have
I
to
can
roll the dice. You
I
have
can
to,
like I was lucky.
decide for that.
I held on and I was in the playoffs. I have OG. I've held on, and so far so interesting. But like you said, next week it's a really lovely schedule that he has going forward. And JC brings up a player here in Flynn. I think Flynn becomes really interesting, but he's been really inconsistent. But when he gets the minutes, he shows off a little bit where he at least could be a solid assist guy with some points upside. I think it's really going to come down to what they do. But I think as a speculative ad, he's not absolutely terrible because, like you said, they're a very tricky team to monitor. Because here's the one thing that's kind of crazy to me: they are right there in the play-in tournament.
Exactly.
They can make the playoffs in a heartbeat. And if they just decide this week that we want to go for it, they could go for it and screw this whole thing over. And next thing you know, I'm watching OG and only play 5 games next week, and I'm just like, please more, please more. And that's what I'm just praying. And I think that's going to be the most interesting to watch because it's really hard to tell and to gauge what's going on. And one thing to look at when you are making those pickups is how long are you going to have a guy for? Because if you have a guy that's going to be only playing today and then he's off tomorrow and then he's off the next day and then he's going to play another game and then there's another guy that's able to play 2 games back to back and then you can drop him and pick somebody else up. I think that those are things that you have to look at when you're making your moves. You have to see, okay, how many games can I get out of this guy? How roster moves do I get? Because I know in a lot of leagues they restrict your moves, so you only get sometimes 5 to 7 moves in a week. So you just can't add everything willy nilly. So sometimes it might be a situation where, okay, I know this guy's getting a back to back here, and I know that this guy's going to be off for the weekend, and these are my 2 rotate guys. So in these spots, I'm going to either pick someone up that's playing a back-to-back here, and then I'm going to drop him and pick somebody else that's picking a back-to-back, or someone that's going to have 3 games and 5 games in the back half of the schedule. Those are things that you actually want to look at when you're building your team coming off the waiver wire because it's going to give you the additional games that you need while cutting down on your roster moves because you're going to have your main core of guys that are untouchable, but there's going to be a couple of guys that which call you rotate guys. And those are the guys that you can fluctuate in and out, that you can move from the waiver wire where they're kind of Now when they're kind of you have to look at how many games are left, what categories are you down, and like you said, you need to analyze where you're at and say, okay, I am down in rebounds, but going forward in rebounds, this guy has more center play available. However, what that means is that I could really go for 3-pointers because even though I'm down, he has more center play at the end. I'm going to add some more 3-point shooters and let's shoot for these threes and get it that way. So you're going to have to understand where your opponent is scoring, and you're going to have to understand where are they going to score for the rest of, like you said, you need to forecast. Like, okay, Steph Curry's playing 3 games. I'm getting 2 more games out of Russell Westbrook, but his big man only has 1. So let's go this way. You have to look at that because I can't tell you that unless I get your exact roster, your exact situation. These are things like in the draft, I definitely go over. I do the 3 things that you have to know before you draft your team. That's something that we do in every sport. You got to understand what the scoring setting is. So what gets you the most points? Is it a league where double doubles get more points than just doing something single? If you're doing it in a points league, then you want to add big men like Stewart when they're playing because they're going to get you that double double. Or maybe that's the game that Plumlee's playing and you want to go for that. Well, yes, that's a long shot upside, but that's the way you're playing and that's the way you're strategizing. And you're saying, yes, I'm taking a risk. But with this scoring system, I might luck myself into a double double and get these bonus points that I'm not going to get from another waiver wire pick because you're looking at what their potential points are and what it'll do for you. And the same thing, like you said, when you see a guy like Lou Williams right now coming up, that's a big free throw monster that is able to boost up that free throw category, and you're somewhat tight in it, and you don't have, and you need someone. Boom, that's someone that can go and that can gain that one specific category that you need. Yeah, Lou Williams is not going to get you that many assists. Yeah, he's not going to get you rebounds. Man, doesn't he not block shots? But you know what? I needed free throw, and he got me the free throw I needed, and now I'm able to get that one category that I need. Because guess what? When you're at the bottom of your roster, it's not now being about a total, stud muffin. It's about what categories do I need, what can I get, and how can I win. So it's a complete different ball game. And like you said, you need to have the big boy pants on and make some of these decisions because you're gonna have to the Bobby Porter situation. I literally said I'm gonna take this one on the chin. If he's bad, I'll have to drop him in the next game. But for now, I'm gonna hold him because they're playing in a back-to-back. I don't know what's going on with Giannis, and this guy has a situation where if he's able to get some minutes and find the stroke that he had earlier in the season, he's worth it. And boom, it worked. Now we got a quick question here. Do I drop Van Vliet? Play it? I honestly, right now, he's a hold. I think Van Vliet is a hold because we just don't know what they're gonna do. I think that there's a possibility if they beat the Knicks, they might look at it and say, hey, you know what, guys? We still got Lowry here. We got Gary Trent here, OG Anunoby, and Pascal Siakam are some big boys up front that are getting the job done. You know what? Let's go for it. Or Messiah Ujiri could be Messiah Ujiri and say, hey, you know what? This draft is pretty loaded. This draft's pretty loaded. So it's just a tricky situation. You got to play it by ear. Don't get too antsy with him because when he plays, he's a monster. For everything he did at the start of the year was one of the top players in the game.
Yeah, he's one of those undervalued second rounder that is
Yep.
very, very good because he has an ability to
Yep.
score in bunches. There are just few players that can do that. You have Devin Booker
Absolutely.
and other players, or you can find it in the first round of the drafts. Those are just first.
Yep.
Second round of the draft. Those are just top five players. So having some that Van Vliet player in your roster that could
Mhm.
explode at any point in time is
Mhm.
it's an advantage for you. But unfortunately, now just leave it behind because it's a different story right now. Like what
Exactly.
Mr. Tacos just said here, it's going to be hard. So
Yep.
something that we could help both
Mhm.
me and Mr. Taco here is just to give you two options.
Mhm.
Just so we have two directions for Toronto. If they want to do the play in,
Mhm.
this means Flynn might not play more.
Mhm.
So we have to check the news, analyze their
Mhm.
moves if they want to do that. So
Mhm.
that could be a hint for us to still hold on to those core players. But the
Mhm.
moment they decided not to play or not to win, which I personally believe they should do. Because
Mhm.
I mean, is Garrett Trent your main man of the future? I don't think so. They need some better guys to be added in their the next 5 to 10 years, right? So if they go and somehow try to be friends with the Minnesota and the tanking brigade, so
With
this means
OKC?
Malachi Flynn. Minnesota is one of the
Oh,
best
they're the worst.
tankers now.
They're bad, but OKC, bro. The Lou Dort situation is single handedly breaking my heart more than anything because this kid is finally breaking out. He's like on the cusp of stardom, right? He's like brimming. It's like when you see that coffee that's brimming with the phone and they're just not giving it to you. They're like, no, that's for somebody else. And you're like, but that's exactly what I want. Give me what I want. No. Next year.
And for those Shea owners, Shea is one of the
Oh,
most high player this season. I mean, you
oh,
have to feel bad about them.
yep.
Thing is, he might play one game because after that good game, I will definitely see it.
Oh, I
But
pray.
we can only do so much. So
Yep.
just going back with the Toronto lineup, just in case
Yep.
they started to tank. You have to watch out for the likes of Kem
Mhm.
Birch, especially with water boy sitting out. And also we have these two dudes that are pretty unknown to almost everyone. So we have Freddie Gillespie and Yuta Watanabe. So I think those
Mm,
guys could curve up solid roles down the stretch
mhm,
if Toronto won't
mhm,
want to win. So watch out for those guys. Toronto has just few players in their rotation, so you can't like you can do wrong. The only thing is not adding. It's about
mm.
predicting when will they play and when will they not. So that's the tough one.
Moves are one of those things where it's like I want to say the perfect move because I feel like like this part becomes like poker, especially when you have another guy that's playing the wire. Sometimes you have to get the guy before the other guy. Other times you want to slow play it. I want to say that specifically with LaMelo Ball because LaMelo Ball came back and I'm in a league with moves and I'm like, oh, he might be back in 7 to 10 days. I want to add this because future if I have an injured spot, I can just throw him in the injured spot. I'm good. But then I'm looking at the weekend. I'm like, I'm facing a really tough opponent. I really cannot waste a single move. And my opponent thankfully added him, which makes it a little bit sweeter because now he has one less move and we're going to duel it out. He has 2 moves left for the week. I have 5 moves left for the week. We are in a tight neck and neck battle and we are the two highest scoring teams, of course, because, that's just how the cookie crumbles that we're looking at the other side of the bracket like, why, if I could have just only been there. But that's where we're at right now. So it's a battle. We got to really sit there and I got to analyze every single move. I got to hold on. I gotta see. I try to get as many guys that are playing back to backs. Or the cool thing about basketball is there'll be guys that won't play at the beginning of the week, but at the end of the week they'll have 3 games, and then those are guys that you could try to snag up and be like, okay, he has 3 games in 4 days, or he has 3 games in 5 days. Now let me add him. Oh, this guy is not playing. Oh, okay, so Dorian Finney-Smith is not playing on Sunday, but he's going to have a back-to-back Friday and Saturday. Bet I'm going to hold Dorian Finney-Smith because I added him last week. Like I had 4 guys that I'm basically rotating, and I'm just analyzing their games played because they are good players, they're solid players. But at this point in time, it's about accumulating as many stats as you need to win. So you cannot get too complacent or too holding to your guys that you have. And you also have to understand if you don't use your moves, you lose your moves. And sometimes, and this is going to sound counterintuitive, the best move is the move you don't make. And I'm going to reference Bobby Portis with that because I was ready to make a move, ready to jump the gun. Didn't. He delivered a big game. So sometimes you really just got to analyze the situation, see how many games your guy has left, see what stats you're going for. If it's a guy that doesn't fit your stats category, even if he has a back-to-back, then yes, it makes sense for you to drop him because he's not going to be able to help your bottom line. And your bottom line is the 5 categories you're going to win. Yes, you want a 6, 7, 8. You want to sweep them out, win all 9. That's all fine. You got to win 5. You got to win 5 to win. So pick your 5 and go for it. Everything else is gravy. Now we got to focus down on the key categories. Yes, your team should be built to play for 7. So this way, if it's a situation where you're facing a really good team, you're going to know where you can pivot because you have guys that can fill those holes, right? All right. So I think this has been fun. I've been hyped. I'm like, oh, I didn't even drink a Red Bull, but I feel like I'm on one. This is hyped, bro. We got to have you back next week because, the playoffs are a big thing. I definitely would love to come back on the show that you have as well because I think that was a good time. I like jamming with you, my friend.
Yeah. Thank you so much, bro. Probably just a little bit statement for my last words.
Sure.
I would like to shout out to those commissioners that I mean I've been receiving a lot of message and I've also experienced this. There's a lot
Mhm.
of commissioners there that is trying to play God, trying to those teams that are out or they're doing their trades on their own. So for
Uh-huh.
me, if you encounter this stuff, you have to take note of those names and just don't join those leagues. It's killing the fantasy basketball fan if you have those leagues. It's
Really?
you're just like playing with kids. So for me, just don't rant about it. Just don't think about it. Just quit that league and maybe join a better league next season. And also for you guys, the GMs, the commissioners out there, guys, you have to lock those teams. Any teams
Yeah.
that are out of the playoffs, you
Yeah.
have to lock them. They will
Yeah.
screw up
Yeah.
the free agent pool for those GMs that are playing for the
Yeah.
playoffs. I mean,
Yeah.
just give some love to those that come in the league. prepared, doing their job, staying up late, waiting for the news. You have to give some love, guys. So for those commissioners, I really urge you to lack those teams because it's gonna skew the whole strategy that we've been talking a lot for around an hour now. So
Yep.
that's my last shout out, bro.
Yeah.
What can you say about this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, hey, it gives me a season where maybe next year we host a couple of leagues for these people to make it a little bit easier since we're building that community for them, give them a safe place to play with some integrity. But that's a whole other different conversation. But that just comes to mind when I hear these issues because I'm not gonna lie, I only play 4 leagues. I keep it pretty simple, but I like to keep it strategic. But I am the talented Mr. Taco. This is the Daily Sporting. We had a wonderful time. We want to thank you so much. We want to thank Poppy Roy for coming on from Basketball PH. We had a great time. Everyone, good luck in your playoffs, and we're going to end you with our intro.
Hey, David and Taco, they bring that heat. All about UFC, way more than a fantasy. Let's see who going toe to toe. Throw down on the mat, check the replay, run it back. We gotta check the stats. Hey, do this every day. We ain't come to play. This is sports talk, and we love talking MMA. Everything fantasy sports. Dopest show that I know. With Electric Dave and talented Mr. Taco. Let's go. Hey, G.